Hello and welcome back to another AR 3D tutorial. And here we're going to take a look at the helper components that are built into the ARConnex starter package. And we've gone ahead and created a example game, and we'll be making this example game available as a download so that you can go in and explore how we're putting all this together. But here we're just going to go with a brief overview. So first thing we need to do is be able to parent items to a camera, and that way we can have a ball appear so that it's right in front of the user all the time. And here we'll take a look at ground plane and this game in action. And so we have a simple little help screen. We have the ball. It's using physics dynamics right out of the Unity. And then we're keeping track of when the ball goes through the net, and we have a scoreboard timer to count down and increment our score. And so each of these helper components does have a little help file. And so in this case, we need to create a object called camera child and apply this script. It'll automatically parent to the AR camera at runtime. The next item we need to do is instantiate a prefab. And what that looks like at runtime is basically dragging our prefab that we've selected onto the camera child. And then we have that right in front of the user, ready to be shot. And so on a touch event, it'll go ahead and process that touch event, and we'll take a look at the ball now to see what we have on the ball. So standard rigid body component that comes out of the box in Unity. A constant force component that we've animated that comes out of the box. Our destroy object at a distance, we've got it set for 35 units, so when it reaches that distance it'll automatically destroy itself. And if we remember, if we go back and look at the camera child, we'll see that we have it set to respawn when it is destroyed, and that'll place the ball right back in front of the user for the next shot. And then we have the animator controller and the standard event trigger. And the animator is basically just adding a little bit of torque to the X rotation so that it has a natural rotation when it is shot. And so we're triggering that animation, and then we're also calling the launch prefab, which is an option built into our add force to prefab component, which is at the bottom. And so this, we can set the thrust for the particular object that we're using as a projectile. And then we can also unparent that from its parent at the moment it is launched. And that way the rotational movement of the user's device no longer affects that object in flight. It's really just in the control of the dynamics engine. And so looking at the scoreboard, our timer is very simple. You can set the countdown time in seconds. We can control two text elements using Text Mesh Pro for both the time and the score count. And then you also have the ability to add an audio clip for signifying the end of the timer. It can either auto start when the experience begins, or in our case we've left that off and we've added a UI button, standard in Unity, and use the event of that touch to call the start timer function. And so with that, we get to look at the cube, or the basket itself. And so by putting a trigger object cube inside of the basket and setting it for trigger, we now have an event that gets called using our OnDynamicTriggerEvent component whenever a dynamic event happens. And so whether it's a collision event or a trigger event, that component will allow us to then process a number of items. In this case, we have our score animation, which plays a little bit of net animation. We have the light that lights up. We have our sound that plays when the basket's scored, and we also have the increment score option that we're calling on our scoreboard to increment the value. That's pretty much it. We just take a quick look at the game again. We have 3 different baskets. The only difference between them is we have 3 colliders in the 3-pointer, 1 collider in the single pointer, and then on the other side is a 2-point basket, and we've used 2 colliders in that one to keep track of the 3 different values. And with that, we'll see you in the next tutorial.